star.
I move over there. It's like it's
You have your rock star? Oh, I'm right here.
Oh
Me.
Okay, so
Jerk.
my urban legends are really kind of based on urban legends. They're actually myths based on legend, based on fact.
Okay.
So it's kind of weird. But the
A
first
lot of
one,
them are.
but the ones that you got are really based on a real life event.
Well, I'll get to that because not exactly to the T, but
the one that I got though is really interesting, and since you went to campus, I kind of want to touch on that a little bit more.
okay.
So with that, let's kick off the show. That's our little pre-show for right now. Testing mics, everything's working good on your end?
Testing.
All right, next time you gotta hold that note.
Which one? The deeper one?
Yeah, there you go. All right, I am your host, Johnny Zuko, and I am here with the Crypt Keeper's mistress, Elysa.
Hello, everybody.
And today's show is going to be a little different. We're moving away from films today, and we're going to be concentrating on urban legends. Now, it depends on how this episode does. We might do more of these, and I hope it does well, because this is a really interesting topic that a lot of people touch on, but we got our own little spin on it. So let's ask the question, though. What is an urban legend? Like, what defines an urban legend?
And that's the thing too. It's like you always think of urban legend being associated with like your childhood. Like, oh, did you hear what happened there? Did you hear this? It's kind of like a warning, I feel, to kids. You know, like a kind of like a prerequisite of like what not to do to be a good kid. You know, I don't know if it's like passed down in generations or, you know, but I feel like everyone has something that they can say that they were told. And it's always like, oh, don't go there or don't do this because this will happen. You're
supposed to serve as a cautionary tale to like make sure you behave. Otherwise, if you don't, you know, bad things are gonna happen to you. It's like I don't find it any different than a parent telling their kid, like, if you don't stop misbehaving, the monster underneath your bed or in your closet is gonna come and get you.
Yeah.
And it's gonna take you away from us.
Yeah.
Like, I don't see how any of the stories that we're going to be diving into are kind of different from that.
Mm-hmm.
I also feel that, you know, when we were told as urban legends, I don't know about you, but for me personally, the urban legends that were told to me were meant to scare me. They weren't meant to teach me a lesson, or maybe they were, and I was just too young to think about it.
You just weren't aware of it at the time. You just thought, oh, that's scary.
Because a lot of them they serve as a morality and a cautionary tale.
Yeah,
you know, sure. They're supposed to show like the strength of a person, and they're supposed to determine whether or not you are a good person. Do you agree with that? Or
I agree with that too, and I also think back to being a kid. I feel like a lot of people did it to test you, kind of like truth or dare, to see if you would like do something. Like, for example, and I mean, I know we'll get into it, but like, you know, chanting Bloody Mary in the mirror, like, do you have the guts to do this? Or the midnight,
which I don't.
Or the Midnight Man playing, you know, the game, like, do you have the guts to do this? And there's like actual really dangerous ones, you know, the train tracks, putting your car there, putting it in reverse. You know, there's a lot of like dangerous ones, so I feel like people did it kind of as a test, especially like if you were a teenager, you know.
You know, but where did these legends come from? A lot of them, like, I was doing some research over the weekend. I was thinking, you know, a lot of them are based on like coincidence or on a real life event. And then when someone gets a hold of that, they spin it and then they make it their own, or they say, "Oh, a friend of mine did this," or
my cousin, or my neighbor.
Yeah, and so they personalize it to say like, it happened to me, so it could happen to you.
Right.
I'm just thinking, it's like, is it really a game of telephone?
Yeah, exactly. I mean, and that's the question, right?
I mean, isn't what an urban legend is, a game of telephone? Because from each story passed down to each generation has their own spin on the same tale.
Yeah, like old wives' tales or folklore. A lot of it has to do with folklore too. Yeah.
Which you can trace all the way back to like the 19th century, 18th century.
Yeah, 18th century for sure.
And so people will gather around campfires and always tell about the Bigfoot in the village or something like that. Or the monster in the village or whatever.
Yeah.
To me, I feel like urban legends are meant to teach you something and really kind of test a character.
I agree on that. And also to like test your character and to see, you know, if you have something to prove or if you have the guts to do it.
You know, a lot of urban legends even take their own now film, which I said we're going to stay away from film, but you can't help but mention it because films really play up those urban legends in a lot of those movies, especially like in Candyman movie, Urban Legend, Scream,
Campfire Tales, Black Christmas, even Halloween.
Yeah.
When a Stranger Calls, and I'll get into The Town That Dreaded Sundown. But yeah, a lot of films have been influenced on these urban legends, but made it more dramatic and made it more horrific.
Yeah, and so when people would tell these stories, they would often tell various stories of the movie version or their own spin.
Yeah.
So we have like a list of our own urban legends that we're gonna get into. So who went first last time? You did, right?
I think I did. Yeah.
Okay, so I'm gonna go first with my urban legend.
Okay, cool.
And my urban legend is kind of really based on coincidence, really, and it is often known in the gaming community as the Madden curse.
I haven't heard of this one.
Now, a lot of people didn't put a lot of weight into this urban legend. So the story is John Madden used to be on the cover of all his video games up to 1999. And then up until 99 to present, there have been nothing but players on. So people that were MVPs or people that had stellar seasons in football, they would have the prominent cover. And that was a cover that was really looked upon like, I made the John Madden cover. Like I'm the star, you know what I mean?
Yeah.
Like that's how you know that's how you know you crossed over to like mainstream, right? So in 1999, they decided to put a player on the Madden cover. And it was the first Madden game to come out for the PlayStation. Sega, Super Nintendo, all those other ones. And it was the 49ers running back Garrison Hearst, who had run for like 1,400 yards, like 12 touchdowns. He had a stellar game in the wild card. But all in within that calendar year when he was on that cover, he broke his ankle in the divisional round, and he was out the entire next season.
Wow.
And so from then on, but here's the funny thing. Garrison Hearst, that cover was never, I've looked into it, and that cover was never released in the States.
What? Where was it
It was released in Europe and in China and overseas. They had that, right?
Oh,
but no one picked up on it because John Madden was still on the cover here.
Oh, how weird.
And so people try to like say, okay, maybe, you know, it's a fluke. Okay. Next year. Now in the next year, it's a worldwide thing. The player comes on, he's on the cover, and he suffers a torn ACL, and he's out for the season.
Wow.
First game of the season, he's out. And only 5 out of 20 players to appear on the Madden cover have not been struck by the curse.
That's really low.
And so people say, "Oh, well, Tom Brady didn't get struck by the curse," and people try to equate like playing bad during a season and not having a good season to being on the curse, but they're also saying players being injured on the field is also equated to the curse. You can't have it both ways. It's either one or the other. Like they're injured or they're having a shitty season. But 15 players have had season-ending injuries.
That's very high.
Yeah. And granted, football is a competitive sport, it's a physical sport, but you gotta kind of like think about it like, shit. Almost every single player has had a season-ending injury. That's cool. That's some crazy coincidence.
That's pretty nuts.
And so now the test is gonna be Antonio Brown, the wide receiver for the Steelers. Is he gonna have that kind of luck?
Who's next? Dun, dun, dun.
You know, a lot of people didn't put.
Start saying no. I would.
A lot of
Like, I don't
players
wanna
and
be on the
fans, like
Are they
players.
skeptical or like?
No, players and fans really dread being on that cover now.
Really?
Yeah, they dread being on that cover.
So there's like a superstition with it then.
Yeah. And superstition runs rapid in sports. You hear stories
Oh,
about how certain baseball players would, like, if they have like a good game, they would use the same glove and then you do the same routine. Or if they hit like a certain batting average, like for a home stretch, they'll never change their jock strap or their stuff like
that's
that.
a gross one.
You know, but that's the superstition though.
Or they do like a ritual beforehand.
Yeah, and if you watch Major Leagues, the Cuban player Serrano, he's a voodoo priest.
Oh.
So you see the superstition start taking play in there, but that's always been around. So fans and players have all dread having their team on the cover.
Wow.
They like, no, don't do it. One year they try to swerve the fans by saying, okay, look, we're gonna have these people and you get to vote.
Wow.
What do you think happened?
They didn't want to do it.
They didn't vote for the A-listers. They voted for the C-listers.
Oh no way! That's messed up.
And
That's
so,
messed up.
and guess what happened to him? He had an amazing season with the Browns the year before, and then come opening day,
No.
curse struck.
What happened?
Torn ACL,
What?
MCL.
Wow.
And it's like, holy shit. And he hasn't been in the game since. And that was back in 2014?
Also pretty recent then.
Yeah.
Wow.
So I didn't really give much weight to this till like ESPN ran like a story on this as a goof for Halloween on like one of their shows, and they were talking about the Madden curse.
I've never heard of it, so like I don't really follow sports, but
I mean, if you play video games, if you follow sports, this is kind of like a big one. This is like up there with like Laura Croft being nude. It's like 1A, 1B, you know what I mean? So the Madden curse is a really big one, and on top of that, it's still going on. A lot of people don't want their players to be on there. They're legitimately afraid.
So why don't they just stop making the why don't they just stop doing the covers?
Money, crossover appeal. They want the NFL to have a wider audience, you know, to reach to people like you that don't watch football. You know, they want to reach out to the people that play games, because the people that play Madden, they play fantasy football too.
That's true.
So they want to reach out to everyone they can. So they're trying to cross over. And I think that's not going to happen as long as Madden is like one of the top sellers. For EA, they're not going to say, oh, we don't believe in this.
Yeah.
You know, and they said like 5 players have not been struck. So
Only 5 though.
you know, so 5 players. So just think about that. 5 players have not been struck by the curse.
Well, we'll see who's next.
Yeah, so to me, that's a really interesting one. It's really based on coincidence, and there's really no levity to it. But just 5 players out of 20. To me, that's
like
wow.
that says something. I mean,
Yeah.
Those are numbers. Like you could be skeptical all you want, but when there's numbers like that, I don't know.
Yeah, so that's one of my urban legends, the Madden curse.
Very cool. All right, so we'll get into mine. So this one I kind of grew up with, as a lot of girls. This is called The Babysitter and the Man Upstairs. So story goes, a babysitter goes over to a big house. House is kind of dark, sometimes it's on a dark and stormy night. Each story will vary. The parents, give her all the information she needs to know. They say the kids are upstairs asleep, so don't really interrupt them that much. And then the parents leave. So then the girl... Nice sound effect.
Yeah, right?
Breaks the tension there. So then the girl, she's in the house, maybe watching TV, maybe doing homework, whatever. Time goes by, and then she gets phone calls, and the phone call says, have you checked the children, or something along those lines. And then she gets kind of freaked out, because she's like a young teenager, and like, who the hell's calling me? Who's doing this? So as the night progresses, she gets more of these phone calls, and then it says, why haven't you checked the children? So this is when she gets really scared, and she calls the cops. And the cops will they'll say, okay, we'll trace the phone calls. We'll see like where these phone calls are coming from. So then eventually that happens and they call her and they say the calls are coming from inside the house. And then she gets freaked out. And then different stories go. She runs outside. Some say she runs upstairs and the children are murdered. Some say the children aren't murdered. And the parents come home and everyone's fine, but that there was a man hiding upstairs making these phone calls to her. So, you'll get tons of different variations of the story. And I looked into this because it is such a scary story because, so many young girls will babysit,
Yeah.
And they're young. Like some babysitters are even like 13, 14 years old, depending.
Yeah, my first babysitting job.
Yeah.
At 12.
It's like your first job, really, for a young girl. So I don't know, just hearing that growing up, it was scary. And then you had, not to mention movies, but I'll mention movies. There were movies based off of this, When a Stranger Calls, even Black Christmas in a way, the creepy phone calls, the guys inside the house. He Knows You're Not Alone. There's
Black
a ton.
Christmas. Did you say Black Christmas already?
Yeah, Black Christmas.
Halloween is
another one.
variation.
Babysitters being stalked.
And the thing about that urban legend too is that it's so real and it's so close to home.
Oh yeah.
It makes the suburbs feel dangerous.
Absolutely.
It's like nowhere is safe now. Like
right.
You can be in a gated community and then receive those phone calls and then have that revelation that it's coming from inside.
It's coming from inside. And then nowadays, this legend is kind of hard because of, caller ID, or also people don't really have phones inside their houses anymore. People have cell phones.
Yeah.
So this legend, it is a little
dated.
It's dated and aged, but it is still scary. And I remember because when I had my first babysitting job, I was older. I was like 17, 18. And my sister was originally supposed to be the babysitter for this kid, but she couldn't make it. So she's like, oh, do you want to replace me? It's good money. So I was like, yeah, sure, why not? And it was in December, so it was super cold, super dark. And I think it was raining or drizzling or something. So I go and I drive. This house is legitimately in the middle of nowhere. They have a gate and there's like a code to get in. And then I go in, they have a barn house on the property. And that freaks me out too, because it was just pitch black. Like they didn't have a lot of lighting, but I was able to make out the barn house. And I'm like, okay, where am I? And then I pull in and they have this like huge house like on this land. And the kid was like a really scared kid. He was 4 years old. He didn't even like say hi to me. He like ran away and I was trying to find him in this big house by myself. It was creepy, and then I always had, like, knowing the movies I've seen and hearing this legend, it's like, oh shit, like, what if this happens to me, like, I'm literally in the middle of nowhere, and cell phones back then sucked. You didn't have GPS on your phone, like, service sucked, so, like, it was a flip phone, so yeah, like, that, it did scare me. Nothing happened, but, you always had that in the back of your mind, like, what if?
Especially when when the wind blows through the house and the wood expands and it sounds like footsteps in there, like
the creaks and the cracks, and it's a strange house. You're not familiar with it, So it was just kind of creepy.
Especially that little kid can jump out anywhere.
And he hid the whole night from me until I was like, "Do you want to watch a movie? Like, we'll watch the Polar Express," because that was the year the Polar Express came out. And it was around Christmas time. So he eventually sat down to watch that. But then like the whole night I was trying to find him and I was like, where is he? So it's very odd. But, so I did research on this and, there's also a documentary called Killer Legends that also touches on this as well.
Yeah.
But so this originated, from an unsolved crime that happened in the 1950s in Missouri. So there was a girl named Janet Chrisman who was babysitting really young kid, and she knew the family. She was a babysitter before. A lot of people knew her, and the dad gave her direction, or told her what to do, like don't answer the door. He even like laid a shotgun out just in case. This was like back in the 50s, like people did that. So he kind of gave her like a heads up, like just leave the light on, don't answer to anyone you don't know. And he gave her like all that information, and she was a pretty smart girl from like what everyone was saying. But they left, and it was a rural area that this happened at, and then no one knows what exactly happened in the house, but apparently around 10:30 the police got a phone call of a woman screaming, come quick, come quick. And they couldn't trace the phone call, so they don't know like if that was her. But fortunately, what happens to her is the parents came back and they found her murdered. The kid was okay. The kid wasn't hurt.
What you mean, unfortunately?
Huh?
Don't you mean unfortunately?
Did I say fortunately?
Yeah.
Oh, sorry. My head's all over the place. Yeah, so they found her, like, she was sexually harassed. They found her in a pool of blood. And they said the door was unlocked and the light was on. So there's been speculations on this, and there has been suspects, but they're saying they think she knew who her killer was, and they thought it was another guy that lived locally who had kids, and he would like make comments about her to other people, like, "Oh, she's developing nice," like just kind of creepy comments about her, and saying how he would like want to take her virginity. So, and then he knew she was babysitting that night because he originally wanted her to babysit his kids. So it's, you know, nothing ever happened. Like he did like a lie detector test, but he was never, you know, convicted of the crime. So her case remains unsolved, but
Wow.
it's crazy. And then so around that time, you know, you have to look back at the 50s. We didn't have social media. Our source of news was our parents, our neighbors, and like
Whatever's on the radio.
or it was on the radio, or like one news channel at the time, you know, and newspaper. So I think the Babysitter and the Man Upstairs, this really originated from that. And also in the 1960s, in a similar area, women were getting attacked and sexually harassed a lot, babysitting, you know, or on the college campus. So you hear all these different stories and things, and then that's kind of probably where this legend came from around that time. If a girl was going to go babysit, the mom would be like, you know, don't, you know, be careful, make sure, you know, you don't want to open the doors or answer the phone. So I really think this is kind of what caused that. But yeah, it's crazy. Like you said, it's the suburbs. It's a rural area. You're not like, this isn't a place where you think you'd have to look behind your shoulder every second. You know, like this could happen in a nice, safe home, a nice, safe community. And that's what scares people the most, because it's not like a dangerous city, or, you know, you don't have someone lurking, stalking you when you're walking down the street.
It's funny too, because like when you have movies like Halloween and Nightmare on Elm Street, they're not depicted in like urban areas, they're depicted in suburbs. And so and it makes it scary. And so like when you have John Carpenter, Wes Craven showing you that you're not invincible, you're not invulnerable,
right.
You can get touched, things can happen in here. And the suburbs, you know, underneath the surface can be an ugly area.
Oh, for sure.
Can be ugly.
They're better at hiding things, I think, in the suburbs.
That was kind of the theme of the first Purge. Not the first Purge, but I mean
the Purge?
The very first.
The Purge. Just say the Purge. Don't say first Purge, because that just confuses everyone.
Because it's a safe, rich community.
Yeah. And so he was really lax about his
but then again, you know,
system not working that well. He didn't care because he felt like the suburbs were totally safe.
But then again, you know, he was fucking his own people, and so everyone was like, you know, we're gonna go.
That's true.
We're gonna go get him. You know what I mean? So I felt that was a nice comeuppance for him. But then, never mind. I'm gonna stay away from that. You can go back to our first episode and listen to that rant. But you know, as far as the babysitter, there's a lot of variations on that.
Yeah.
And it stems from this real true crime event. Now, where did this legend come from? Like, how did it even start? Was it with the movie, or was it someone that just got a hold of it on a newspaper and said, hey, I think I might know that girl, and then just kind of passed it on?
I think that's what it was, because I mean, like, there's so many cases where things like this happened in the 50s and 60s. And even there was another instance where a girl was babysitting and she was raped, and she said the man was wearing a white mask with holes cut out for eyes. She survived this. But what does that sound like to you?
Texarkana killer.
Yeah, the town that dreaded sundown, which I'll get into with my other urban legend. But like all this stuff happened in those types of areas in the 60s. So I don't know. It's pretty nuts. Like, but as far as like the phone call, like they never knew it was her. But come on, no one else was murdered that night. Here's the thing
about that though, and the more I think about it, the more I think it's flawed. Maybe it's possible, because I do remember that you could do this as a kid. But how would you be able to make the phone call from inside the house? Two
separate lines. Yeah,
separate lines.
Sometimes the dads would have like an office phone, or like a separate phone, or the parents would have a different phone from what the You had to have a lot of money to do this, by the way. That was like that was a luxury to have two different
Wasn't that
landlines.
that's not like an extra $50 or $100? Not a whole lot of people had like two.
Not a lot of people had it, but they did have it. I should actually look that up. I don't know when the two separate lines started. That's another thing I should look into.
Yeah, because like to me, the more I think about it, it's like I don't think they could have pulled that off back then. I'm not sure. Maybe they could have.
For sure in the 70s you could, because I remember like around the 70s and 80s, like that was like a popular thing. Because then in the 80s, the teenage girls would want their own phone. Like, I want my own landline. So I know it was popular in the 80s.
Because I remember as a kid, you know, I was able to make phone calls inside the house too, but I didn't even know why or how.
It's a different number, yeah.
Yeah,
different,
you know,
different
again,
line.
I was a kid. I didn't know. I was like, oh, this is cool. So I'm gonna prank call or something like that. But
isn't there a code you could put in too to split two lines on one phone?
That I don't know. I know when I was growing up, you could like star 69 or star 87. You could make your phone private.
I don't think star 69 was back then though.
Probably not back in like the 60s.
Not back in the
50s,
50s and
90s.
60s, but I think that was more of an 80s.
Yeah. So, but then again, getting back to like, you know, this was probably like another thing too you have to look at is the study of young women at that time. You know, this was back in the 50s and 60s. Women's roles back then were a little different, right? Like, oh, check the children. Make sure you check the children. So this has kind of like a guilt thing to it because, oh, if she checked the children, back to the original urban legend, like the kids being dead. Oh, if she didn't check them, maybe if she checked them, they'd still be alive. Women, mind your business. Like, you know, make sure you're doing everything right. And a lot of folklorists have wrote about that too. Saying like, oh, she should be responsible. She's got all these duties. She needs to do them. So I don't know, maybe that kind of had an effect to this. But yeah, like
as to scare
women, to reinforce.
Yeah, to scare little girls to like saying like you need to, you know, this is your role, so you need to play it.
And also too, they're not little kids anymore.
Yeah,
they're
but
becoming adults.
Yeah, but they're like 12, 13.
Yeah.
Essentially, they still are little kids because they don't know any better.
Exactly, but they were treated at that time kind of like to grow up fast, you know? I mean, if you look back then, kids would get married when they were like 18, you know? They would have kids when they were 18, 19. So back then you were more rushed to grow up faster. So at this time, you're kind of like in that weird adolescence where you're you know, puberty not only, but you're gaining all these new responsibilities. So
I think also that it stood as some kind of maybe to snap, since babysitting is typically a teenager's job, to try to snap them out of being so cavalier or not taking danger seriously, even though they are watching kids. They're still not parents,
right?
You know, you're kind of on guard all the time, watching the kids,
exactly.
And so maybe it was a way too to scare them. Someone told it originally to like snap them into like
snap them back in reality,
like being an more adult about the role than just being like how teenagers are like whatever,
they're fine. It won't nothing bad's ever gonna teenagers always think nothing bad's gonna happen to them. Yes. They think like they got the world in the palm of their hand. You know,
You know, when I was a teenager and an adult told me to do something, my first instinct was to say, fuck you.
Right. They're rebellious.
I mean? We were all teenagers and we all had that thought. That's that's just being real though, because every teenager, they don't like being told what to do. Mm-mm. Especially if you told a teenager that story today. Yeah. They'd laugh you out of the room.
They would. And that's the thing too I was going to ask you, like how does this urban legend evolve today? Like, are people still telling this? Like, would kids be scared?
I think the only way you can do it is if you really look at the opening to Scream, where cell phones were invented. Yeah. So people know how to block numbers. People know how to change their numbers. If you really got to be tech savvy to get around a couple of things.
You do.
You know what I mean?
You got to be like a hacker.
And so you can still play this urban legend, but this urban legend needs to have a much more dire consequence. Right. I mean, not to say that the kids disappearing, the kids dying, that's not a consequence, but I'm saying they need to have, I feel like in this generation, you need to play to the teenagers' ego or their vanity or their presence in social media. Yeah. Because I feel like if you attack those things,
Basically, you just have to make it more relatable.
Yeah, and
to
so
what's
you would
going on
have
in
to,
their life
you would
now.
literally have to
It
break the
has to
teenager
be
down
Yeah.
before
relatable.
you can even touch the children.
Yeah.
That's what I'm saying.
Yeah.
So I feel that's the only way that you would be able to do that, because you would have to break the teenager down first, and then go after what's around them. Because once they're broken down,
Mm-hmm.
they're helpless. They're, they can't think straight, and
Yeah.
then you start attacking everything around it.
And then,
That's not a playbook. I'm just saying that's how you would tell the story now.
right. Yeah, it's crazy though, because I always think like how it evolves through the decades, because things change so much. And then even in the remake of When a Stranger Calls, she did have caller ID, but
Did it help her though?
it did, and there were cell phones in it, but the property had a guest house, so that's where the calls were coming from. So it wasn't, and the parents would be like, oh, sometimes our son comes home from college and like, goes to the guest house, so don't be alarmed. So she had that. So that's kind of, I do feel like that was more relatable for these times. When was that? Like 2006, 2007?
Stuff.
Sometime around there.
Yeah. 6, 7.
So that is more for the time. So I think, even having caller ID and a cell phone, you could still find a way to freak them out, especially if it's like a big old house and you don't know where anything is.
I think the one that I'm gonna tell right now is the best way to scare them now.
Okay, let's
And
hear it.
It's one that is really relatable. It's one that could really happen, and it's one that really does play up to the fact that if you are not paying attention, you could die, or you could literally save someone's life.
Shit.
And it is, aren't you glad that you turned on the light? And so there are a lot of variations to this story where it goes from a summer camp to a dorm room. So the one that I heard was these two girls. They're in their dorm. They're studying. One's a bookworm, and the other one's kind of like a party animal. The party animal's trying to drag the other girl. Let's go to the party. Come on, let's go. And she's like, no, man, I need to stay. I need to focus on finals. I need to graduate. Blah blah blah. This and that. She's really serious about her schooling. The other one's all, I just crammed the day before. It works for me. It could work for you. It's like, no, I don't do that. So, party animal takes off. She goes to the party and has the time of her life. And then she comes back with a guy, and she's gonna go back to his dorm. So she goes back to her dorm, stumbles around in the dark, looking for clothes or books or whatever. She grabs what she needs, and she heads home. She heads with the other guy. She comes back in the morning, opens the door, and in blood is written, "Aren't you glad you didn't turn on the light?" And she sees her roommate dead, like slaughtered. Now, there are different variations where she comes home and their cops are there and they show her the body in the room. That one I don't buy, because cops wouldn't let you pass the caution tape.
Right.
And second of all, cops would not show you the body like that.
No.
So to me, that one does not is believable. The other one is when she just comes home and sees it. And I just feel like that right there is just a way to scare people. Because around that time, this one kind of serves as a what was it?
Yeah, when did that originate?
This one originated in the 1960s.
Oh, okay.
But this one also kind of spun off of the legend of the Leg Tan.
Yeah, which I've heard that one too.
And also this one was a part of the one where there was a psychic on the local TV station and saying there will be a killer that strikes at midnight at a certain university, and she'll be giving these vague descriptions of universities all across the country.
What?
So everything would be like everyone's like, oh shit, we have that. Oh shit, we have that.
People thought it was like where they were.
Yeah, and so like the psychic wasn't real. She was just like, playing up to their fears, and she was saying that at midnight a killer would strike.
Jeez.
And then this is where this legend took off. And let's see, what was it? Oh, I didn't write it down. Apparently, hold on. I wrote a lot of notes here, so I'm trying to figure out what it was. Oh, I didn't write it down. Son of a bitch. There was an actual murder in a university involving nurses. So there was a killer.
Wasn't that Richard Speck?
I think so, yeah.
Yeah, he the real serial killer, he went in and like murdered all these nurses.
Yeah, and in their dorm room,
yeah.
right? So that was the psychic saying that, you know, that killer was going to strike again at a certain dorm. And so that's how this one kind of spawned off.
I didn't know that's what it, like, inspired it too. That's crazy.
And so, and this one serves as a cautionary tale because, you know, it pretty much tells you that, you know, just because you're away from home doesn't mean you're not safe.
Right.
You know what I mean?
Mm-hmm.
Oh, man. Pepper, what are you doing?
We got a cat on the notes.
So this was back in the 1960s, and this is what I wrote. It said, colleges were easing off security and were less involved with students' daily lives. It was to make them more aware that they're not home, and colleges were more open and less protected and potentially open to strangers that were possibly dangerous. Because I go up to UCSC all the time. Mm-hmm. There's no gates there. There's security roaming around, but I can literally go up there and just hang out in the library if I wanted to.
Yeah, easy
you know
access.
What I mean?
Yeah.
So a lot of universities, and particularly colleges, they're open to the public for the most part, aren't they?
Not the dorms though. I think for the dorms, like depending where you are, they'll have like security, or you have to have the key card or a key to get in.
Now you went to college, right?
Yeah.
So if you heard this legend at that time, what's going through your mind?
Well, it's funny because I've known about this legend, and I had a roommate, and we shared a room, and we would always make sure we would check in with each other because I went to college in San Francisco, so we were in like the city, you know. So the dorm we were at was kind of, it was like a loft, but it was kind of at the edge of SF. So at that time there wasn't, now it's totally changed, but at that time they were still kind of like building up that area, but you're kind of isolated. So, you know, we always made sure we checked in with each other. And I would joke with her at this, like, you know, don't turn the lights on me, or like, don't die in bed, you know. But it is scary because it's like, in this scenario, you have one good girl, one bad girl, you know, one goody two-shoes trying to get her work in, wanting to be a good student, being, you know, I don't want to go party. And then you have the other one who's like, no, let's go party, let's go have fun. So it's interesting in the version you told that the goody two-shoes is the one that gets murdered, and then the partier is the one that doesn't get murdered.
That's the one that's always the... I read a lot. I spent a whole day looking at this urban legend, and there are like 10 different versions.
Yeah.
9 times out of 10,
it's this one?
It's the goody two-shoes that died.
So is it, you think this is like...
It's supposed to serve as a cautionary tale where it's like, not really necessarily for the goody two-shoes, but it's more necessarily for the other person to be aware.
Aware.
To like, you know, check in on your roommate. You know, they're not your responsibility, and, you know, whatnot. Their safety is not your responsibility, but you do have a responsibility to yourself to like check in with them, you know? Like, if you walk in and your roommate just happened to like, commit suicide and you didn't check in with her.
Yeah.
I mean, come on, like...
And that's funny that you mentioned that, because like they would always have they had like RAs of the dorm buildings, right? Resident advisors, and they would check in and they would do meetings where it's like, you know, you guys should be responsible for your roommate. You know, you want to be there for them. You need to help them if anything happens, kind of like a buddy system, if you will. So, and that's the thing too, and going back to the babysitting thing and gaining responsibilities, that's another thing too, is like you're away at college.
That's exactly what I was going to say. It
you
just
know?
seems again, this, like the basic idea of it is trying to snap a more, you know, a teenager that might take things casually into the adult world.
Yeah,
like
you're in this adult world. Yeah,
you need to be more aware, and
be
that's
more aware of your
way
surroundings
by using fear tactics to make them be more adult.
Yeah, and kind of like a coming of age too. Like, you know, you want to be responsible for your roommate, and I don't know. I feel torn with this one because I feel like it is for the girl. It's like, oh, like it's good to take college seriously, but you should get out there and have fun. And then for the other roommate, it's like, don't have too much fun because that can kill you too.
Mm-hmm.
You know what I mean?
But this story appeared in the Vanishing Hitchhiker, which was done by J.H. Brandford. And he has a quote. It says, "One consistent theme in these teenage horrors is that the adolescent moves out of home into the larger world. The world is dangerous and may close in on him or her. Therefore, although the immediate purpose of these legends are to produce a good scare, they also serve to deliver a warning. Watch out. This could happen to you."
Yeah, exactly.
And to me, that's what kind of strikes a chord with me because, you know, I live with my lady sometimes and the lights are always off. And
Hello, you got to turn that light on.
And to me, it's like I always turn on the light.
Yeah.
Because you never know.
Aren't you glad you did?
Yeah, and so like, you know, so this one is really real, and this one could happen. And if you're not paying attention, if you don't turn on that light, you know, yeah, you could either be a victim or you could be a savior, but it's fight or flight at that time.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Once you turn on that light,
Yeah.
you got to make up that decision. Like, you're either gonna fight or you're gonna fly. Plain and simple.
Yeah.
You know, a lot of people have those reactions like they know what they're going to do. If you don't know what you're going to do, then, you know, I'm sorry to say, you're going to be lying right next to them.
Right? Puddle of blood and all.
Lady has to pay the electricity bill.
Yeah, but
this is a timeless one, though.
Yeah,
this
it
is
is,
timeless because there's no technology involved.
And then at the same time, you know, you have people with flashlights, you know,
Yeah.
on their phones, they can go and they swoop, but that's not going to help because the flashlight on your phone can only give you like a certain area of light,
yeah,
and you're not going to be able to tell what it is.
Mm-hmm.
You know, I just feel like, you know, turn on the light.
Yeah.
And, you know, make sure your surroundings are safe.
Check in with your roommate, you know, or whoever you live with, your spouse, your
And this one is
whatever.
And I do agree, this one is timeless because I feel this one is really relatable.
Yeah.
And if you tell people this story, you know, it could possibly scare them and, you know, make them check in on their roommate every now and again.
Especially too because of like, I think also I remember hearing like a lot of rapes went up in college, you know, or at certain campuses. So it's like you always kind of want to check in on your roommate, you know, if a guy's over or if you're sharing a room. I know in Urban Legend they had a scene like this with Daniel Harris.
Yeah.
And the roommate thought she was having sex with a guy because she was like a slutty goth girl.
Mm-hmm.
So yeah, like that's another thing too, is like you always kind of want to be careful.
And in that movie, they actually really played that scene up very, very well.
Yeah, they did.
And it was very uncomfortable to watch. At least for me, because I was watching it and I was like, dude, this is fucking scary because...
And like her room is all, like, so they share a room, right? But her half is all black.
She's literally right, like, this far away from us. And
yeah.
Me and Lisa are not that far, but there's a table between us. That's the length of the room.
It's happening right there.
Yeah, it's like right next to her. And she just puts on her headphones. And then she wakes up in the morning and sees it.
Yeah.
It's quite the sight.
That was a good scene.
Yeah. And so, you know, that one to me is like my only one that's kind of based on true crime. Mm-hmm. And my third one is really, really, really interesting. My third one kind of really took me down a rabbit hole. And,
oh, really?
Yeah. So that's why I'm not really prepared for this one. But, yeah, that third one is quite the kicker though.
Okay. Do you want me to like get in there with mine? Because this one coming up is it's shocking. It's disturbing.
All right, let's go. What you got?
Okay, so this one, and a lot of people know this one, is the Hook Man, or AKA escape.
Lover's Lane.
Yeah, Lover's Lane, or escaped mental patient with a hook for a hand. This one's been this one's been going on for a while, and I remember hearing about this as a kid. Different stories, but the usual story goes, you know, guy picks up a girl, takes her out for a date, and then they go to Lover's Lane, which is like a secluded area in the woods, or it's like by a lake, or, you know, somewhere where no one can easily see you. So
except the Zodiac.
Yeah, right. Which is, I'll get into that as well. So they go there, you know, they make out, and obviously the guy wants a little more action, but the girl starts hearing like creepy sounds. And then some versions say they turn the radio on in the car, and a news broadcast, escape mental patient who has a hook for a hand, be aware, blah, 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 you know, like a scary notice like that. So then the girl starts getting freaked out, and the guy's like, "Oh, come on, like, you know, don't worry about it. Just kiss me, blow me, whatever, you know, depending like what's going on." And she keeps hearing weird sounds again.
Sounds like she's on a date with Eli Roth.
That's probably like his dream come true. Yeah, right. So she keeps hearing creepy sounds, and then she's like, "No, like, take me home, take me home." So then eventually the guy's like, all right. He gives in. So then he takes her home. When she gets out of the car, she sees a bloody, weird hook thing in the car door on her side. Some legends say it's stuck in the window of the car. Some say it's stuck in the door. Other legends say, you know, they're a couple already, and they're both going home together, or the guy sees it versus the girl, depending how you hear it. But so that's the basics of it.
I heard two different ones. I heard the first one. I heard that everything you said was true, but it was just rearranged. So when they pull up to Lover's Lane, the broadcast is already playing, and he turns it off, and then they start making out, and then she hears the thing,
the sounds, yeah.
And he's like, no, and then she's like, no, I don't feel comfortable here. Just take me home.
Yeah.
He does, and he gets out, and then when he gets out to open the door for her, he sees the hook on the door. Yeah. But he doesn't tell her. He kind of just plays it off like, okay, here we go, and it's like, fuck.
I've heard that one too.
Came close. Yeah. And then the other one is, it's not the hook. It's really the couple that are at Lover's Lane, and there's a scratch above. Yes, so I was gonna get into that. Yeah. And it's someone hanging. Yeah. From the tree, and it's scraping on the roof, and I don't know how that one linked to the hook hand.
So the way I heard that one was actually it's the same scenario. They're like making out, and then the guy has to go take a piss. So he's like, "I'm gonna go piss in the woods. I'll be right back." Never say I'll be right back. Never. So she's there like by herself, and then some say, "Oh, she hears the news on the radio in the car while he's gone, you know, peeing," and she keeps hearing like a weird dripping. It's either a drip sound, like blood drip, or a scraping sound, and the guy hasn't come back yet. And she's like, "What's going on? What's going on?" So finally, like, she gets out of the car. There's different scenarios, but then this one is like she gets out of the car and it's her boyfriend that is hanging above. Or as some say, cops pull up and like, "Ma'am, don't get out of the car, don't get out of the car." And then they like try to hide what she sees, but it's still like her boyfriend on top of the car. So that one goes, after researching, those kind of like tie in together.
The one I always heard was that, and I've heard this since I was little, is that they were out, they fooled around. They came home. They never heard anything, any noises, nothing. But when he came back to drop her off, they got out of the car, and it was hanging on the handle. Yeah. And then they happened to hear, like on the news, it said
escape mental patient.
Yeah. So they knew nothing until they got home, and then connected the dots.
That's scary too. Yeah,
and it was more simplified.
I love hearing how everyone has heard it, because everyone hears it in such a different way. Yeah. That's why I love urban legends. But so this this has been a tale, I guess, since like the 50s, or the 60s. But after looking into this, I found that someone wrote a publication to Dear Abby. Do you remember Dear Abby?
Wasn't that like a
She's like a columnist. People would like write to her for advice, like a help column. So
it's not Dear John, where it's also pity.
Back then it was more for like advice or like a warning too, which I'll get into. So they found the first publication from Dear Abby in the 1960s when a woman named Jeanette wrote that story. And then at the very end of that, she wrote, "I will never part to make out as long as I live. I hope this does the same for other kids." So after hearing that, it's like, do you think, again, back to teenagers and, adolescents, was this a warning not to go have sex, underage sex in the woods?
According to horror movies, it is.
Right? Which horror movies have also done that. So...
but then again, it's like, well, you got to ask, what's the credibility of her letter?
Well, so what I also found out, and this has also been circulating around for a long time, and it's been in a bunch of different documentaries, but this is based on a true story. So this is based on the Texarkana Moonlight Murders, which, if that sounds familiar to you, they did a movie called The Town That Dreaded Sundown back in the 70s, and then they remade it not too long ago, actually. So the Texarkana murders happened in 1946. So this is before that urban legend circulated. In Texarkana, it's located on the border of Texas and Arkansas. So what happened was 8 people were attacked by this guy wearing a white mask with holes cut out for his eyes, and 5 were killed. And 4 of the murders were in a Lover's Lane area. So they were young, making out, just trying to hang out together, getting alone time. And this guy would show up with a flashlight and a gun, and he would like demand the guy to get out of the car. This also sounds similar. Zodiac did this as well. So he would most likely sexually harass or rape the girls, and then he would shoot the guys. So the first victims, they survived. But this was in a Lover's Lane area, and they did survive. But they were hurt. They were hospitalized. He struck the guy in the head with a pistol. And then he sexually assaulted the girl with a gun, the barrel of his gun. But then, so about a month later, both victims were shot and murdered, and similar area as the Lover's Lane. Not exactly where the first couple were, but in the similar area. So then like a month after that, another couple was attacked and they were shot. And then he then attacked another couple inside of a house. The guy died, but the woman barely survived. So while this was going on, they were all kind of like a month apart, which is like the full moon, moonlight murders, which the name came from. But it's very scary, and this is like such a small town. And for something like this shocking and disturbing to happen, people freaked out. They set up town curfews. You weren't allowed to go out late at night. Parents would like really like, make sure their kids, tell me where you're going, when you're coming home, I'll drive with you or I'll pick you up. Stores closed early. So everyone just like freaked out because they couldn't catch this guy. So, he didn't have a hook, but he would stalk Lover's Lane areas.
That's where that legend came from. That's where it was born.
That's where this started. So then, this made it wasn't just local news that this made like nationwide news. Hunt for a killer. He could be anyone. And they did have a lot of suspects. A lot of people looked like they were the ones that were doing it, but no one was ever convicted. Yeah. So, you also have to think back again. Like I said earlier, no social media. This, like the telephone game, this would get passed down to kids. Kids would hear this, see this, get freaked out.
And by the time it got to the 60s and the 70s, it had morphed into this own little urban legend of a mental patient.
Right, because the guy's crazy already for killing people.
I'm wondering if that's if that's where the mental part came from, because if they thought he was crazy. But to me, I don't think he was crazy. I think he was very...
Well, they thought he was a sadist. They thought he was very intelligent, but they thought he was a sadist because of the things he was doing. So that's like the first one that kind of started the Lover's Lane area. I did find a couple of other ones where, people would just get attacked in like camping areas, secluded areas.
That's what makes me think of Son of Sam.
Yeah, Son of Sam. And then the Zodiac Killer. Same thing, couple by a lake. He came, shot them in the car. I think those two were having an affair, the couple that he killed. So I don't know, like, if he knew them personally or what, but same setup, the mask cut out, eyes cut out. So you just hear, like, all these creepy... Again, you're in, like, a wooded area thinking, oh, there's not a lot of people here. I'll be okay.
Yeah.
Well, not necessarily.
I mean, you're in a small town where everyone knows everyone.
Right.
And if you're not part of that community already, you're gonna stand out like a sore thumb.
Yeah.
And regardless if you did it or you didn't do it, what I mean? You're gonna stand out. They're gonna like point to you because there's no way in hell they're gonna look inside first. You know what I mean?
For sure.
And so, it's crazy because when you watch that old movie, the 70s one.
That was a great movie, by the way. I highly recommend it.
It is a good movie, but then the way they end it is just so fucking creepy.
The shoes.
It's just
and he's
creepy.
Like standing in line, like, oh, he could be anyone.
And just the way the camera just moves, and it's just like, it's just so haunting because and then it hits you. You realize, fuck, this isn't a movie.
I know it's
this is true. This
story.
is a true story. What the fuck?
Yeah.
And so, like, then it hits you like that. Can you imagine being in Texarkana watching that movie
And they show
at the
it,
drive-in?
They show it every Halloween at a drive-in. They
Oh,
still
do
do
they?
it. They still do. Yeah.
Wow.
Can you imagine that?
He's probably sitting there. He's probably the
He's
one
probably
that's
like
programming
80,
it.
Yeah, or he's got to be older than that. I think he's dead now. Because if this was 1946 and if he was like 20 or something, he's got to be dead.
Unless he's a vampire.
True. The vampire moonlight killer.
Adds a whole another element to that.
But then going back to this hook thing, a lot of folklore say, oh, the guy, back to Lover's Lane setup, the guy's trying to get his hooks into the girl, like he wants to penetrate her. So you have a lot of folklorists that say that too, and is another precaution for girls and responsibility, like be a good girl, like keep your virginity. So there's all these things, and back in the 60s, people would go cruising all the time in their cars, like that was like the thing to do, make out in a car, go to a drive-in, or So I think hearing this in the 40s and having real events in Lover's Lane areas, that set the precaution for parents.
Yeah.
So that was like a boop, warning, danger. So then you have them telling their kids, you better not stay out past 10, or
And especially if it was national news, then you have parents from everywhere.
Everyone heard about it, yeah.
Telling their kids this story.
Yeah. Crazy. It's just such a crazy story to me because it's so... Have you ever been... I don't want to get too personal, but have you ever been in Lover's Lane type of areas?
No.
I
was
haven't.
unpopular in high school, so I was never.
You were a
out
good
there.
kid.
No, I wasn't even a good kid. I was just a stoner, and I'm just like, oh, okay. I would rather stay home on a Friday night and watch horror movies. That was my life.
So you never went to like Lover's Lane, even like
No,
by yourself?
I didn't start dating until like I was 20.
Okay. Well, even at 20 years old, you never like.
No, because like when I was 20, I still wanted to stay home and watch movies.
All right.
I don't even know how I ended up with her.
Well, I will say this, it is creepy. Maybe that's just because I've known about like urban legends like this and I've seen the movies, but like I've been to some areas where it's like, what was that? Did you hear that? So
then you turn on the lights and there's a big bear.
I know, right? Or like a mountain lion or something. But you do get freaked out, and there are stories like, oh, homeless people will like camp in the woods, or oh, there's a crazy person in the woods. So you I don't know, your mind gets to you when you're in those kind of situations,
especially when you're in like darkness, especially just in like being in the darkness in general. Your mind will start to play tricks on you if you let it,
for sure.
And if you're not strong enough mentally to handle that,
no pun intended.
So certain shadows are gonna move, or you're gonna see lights somewhere, you're gonna see like little spots, you're gonna feel like you're being watched. And it's very unsettling. Like I'd be in a dark room sometimes and I'm like, I feel creepy, I feel weird. Yeah. And I turn on the lights.
Unsettling.
Or I'll be cruising down like Mount Madonna, like on 152. Yeah. Like in the dark and in the fog, and I just feel really uneasy. It's like I need to get the fuck down this hill. Yeah. Like really fast. So it's just like, in general, if you just can't handle that, even if you're with another person, and if they can't provide you with assurance that it's going to be okay or kind of calm you down, then you're both kind of fucked.
You're both fucked, man. You're the first to go.
Literally. Not in a good way, but you're fucked. You know what I mean?
Won't get fucked, but you will be fucked. Yeah. Yeah. So, but and then also like back to the movies, like I think this inspired Candyman, the hook thing.
I think the hook did.
And I Know What You Did Last Summer.
I think it had more prevalence on I Know What You Did Last Summer, just because of the hook. But then, if you really think about it, I Know What You Did Last Summer was like a revenge film. Yeah. But then I still didn't really understand the motive behind that. Like, was it his kid?
I know we're gonna do like a thing on that. Yeah. Because I know you hate that movie and I love it. But
I hate it because
I love it.
Oh my god. I love it. How do you have Buffy acting like a fucking bimbo?
She wanted to try something new.
I don't get it. No, you can't do that. Once you're typecasted, you need to stay in that typecast.
She wasn't, okay, to be fair, she wasn't a bimbo. She was the beauty queen. She was a snob. And that's not bimbo. You can have brains and be a beauty queen.
That's Sarah Michelle Gellar, man. Like, she, you know what? I don't even want to go on a tangent, because if I go on a tangent, and like this whole show's gonna go off the rails. I'm not gonna do that. So we're just gonna move on.
All right, well we'll do that another time. But yeah, so that's That one truly scares me. Like, and even to this day, because I love going in the woods by myself, even. But you know, it's a warning because it's like this literally could happen anywhere.
Yeah.
Cat
right
agrees.
on time. Right
yeah,
on cue.
the cat just meowed and agrees with me.
All right, so mine is it's basically a legend.
Basically?
It's basically a legend, but I don't even know how to say it. I think this is the best thing. I'm going to start off with a quote by Martin Scorsese. The thing about Robert Johnson was that he only existed on his records. He was pure legend. Not much is known about this blues player.
Huh.
Not much is known about his life or his death. Even his death is surrounded in legend. And if you don't know where I'm going yet,
I don't know where you're going.
so this one's based on a Faust legend. You know what a Faust legend is?
A false legend?
A Faust legend. It's a German word.
Oh.
I think that's how you pronounce it. Faust. Huh? Faust.
Faust. Yeah.
Faust. So it's basically a pact with the devil.
Oh. Oh, yes.
So
okay.
this one is called Crossroads. And this one right here, I've been fascinated about this urban legend for a very, very long time. I've heard about this legend, and then my lady sent me the story about it, and then it just kind of rekindled my fascination about this. So basically, this is about Robert Johnson and how he learned to play the blues. He was born May 8th, 1911, died on August 16th, 1938.
Wow.
He was 27 and the first and unofficial member of the Forever 27 Club.
I was just going to say that. Yeah.
And the thing about it, you know, there's a lot of... We got this cat all over the place. You know, so this is basically... So Robert Johnson was a blues player, and he couldn't play to save his life. He couldn't play guitar at all, right? Other blues players that knew him back then said that he was a decent harmonica player, but decent. You know, he wasn't great, but he was decent. He could not carry a tune on a guitar for a very long time. He was gone for 2 years. And then when he resurfaced in 1936, he had this whole new skills. Like, he was a virtuoso on the guitar. And everyone was like, how the fuck did you get so good like that?
Like, how'd that happen?
Like, how like, I remember you, like, you couldn't play like that back then.
Yeah.
You know? You got booed out of dive bars and all this stuff. All of a sudden, you're traveling all over Mississippi, Arkansas, and Chicago, and you're, like, rocking clubs, and everyone's loving you and stuff like that.
Wow.
Like, how did you do this? And now, this is where the legend goes. A lot of people say Robert Johnson went down to, there's a infamous crossroads. No one knows the exact crossroads.
Damn.
But they all say that it was a crossroads between Highway 1 and 8. And back then it was a dirt road. And he went down there in the middle of the night and he spoke to the devil. And he said, he gave him his guitar. And the devil played a few tunes, tuned it, and gave him back his guitar. And then all of a sudden, he knew how to play.
Wow. Now,
the interesting thing is that a lot of people say that's not true. You know, basically, he went up to Chicago during that time and played with Ike Zimmerman, who was another famous guitarist out of Chicago. And they would go to graveyards at midnight, and play. Zimmerman would say, I like practicing in the graveyard because it's peaceful and no one will bother you.
Wow, that's cool. And that's a true story?
That's basically, that's from Zimmerman's grandson.
His grandson.
And he said that, no, Robert Johnson didn't sell his soul to the devil. Like, he came up here, he lived with us for like 2 years, learned how to play the guitar.
Yeah.
and he was dedicated to learning how to play the guitar.
Yeah.
And we went to the graveyard. I showed him how to play, and he went back down south and he did his own thing. And at the same time, which is another thing that's kind of like fascinating to me, is that all of a sudden he had a record deal. Now, according to Wikipedia, he just went to the studio and recorded for Columbia Records. There's nothing saying that he signed a deal. There's nothing saying that he was an artist or songwriter or blues player or anything like that. He recorded 4 songs, and one song that he recorded was called Terraplane Blues. And it was his only hit. It sold regionally. It sold 5,000 copies.
Wow, for that time, that
was good for him. You know,
Yeah.
he was making money. He was traveling all over the South playing the Delta blues, and he inspired a generation of blues players.
Yeah.
From Clapton to B.B. King to Albert King to Stevie Ray Vaughan, even the Allman Brothers. Like his song Crossroads and Sweet Home Chicago are his 2 most famous songs, and they have been covered by bands all across the plain.
Yeah.
You know, those 2 songs are inducted into the Hall of Fame as songwriters under Robert Johnson. And let's see, he was also inducted into the Hall of Fame, Rock and Roll Hall of Fame in 1986. And in 2003, he made 5th all time on the Rolling Stone magazine out of 100 greatest guitar players ever.
Damn.
So there's like 2 years that is basically filled with myth and legend.
Yeah.
No one knows exactly what happened. Yeah, he could have gone to Chicago and, you know, dedicated his life to playing the guitar and being a musician. I can buy that.
Yeah.
I'm an artist myself. You know, I dedicate every single hour trying to write bars, so I know how it is. I know people that have been playing guitar for 4 years, and yet they're still not any better.
Yeah.
You know? And I always tell them, like, how bad do you want it? Like, what do you want from it?
Right.
Like, you get as much as you put in. And if you're not putting a lot into it, you're not going to get a lot out of it.
Yeah.
And so I honestly feel like Robert Johnson was a blues player. He was dedicated to learning and how to play. He wanted to be a blues player. That's what he wanted. And for sure, he got that. He recorded 6 records in Columbia. But every time that he was in Columbia Records, according to Wikipedia, I know Wikipedia sources, several engineers out there were saying that he recorded songs very weirdly.
What do you mean, like, weirdly?
Like, he would, like, go stand in the corner and play, or the way he just recorded his songs were just very weird and just very eccentric.
Huh.
And people will often say that, you know, when he would play dive bars and clubs, and then he would, like, play with other musicians would say, you know, once he was done, he'd go on to the next town. Once his set was done, I'm literally, like, meaning, like, he unplug and then move on to the next town and play.
Wow. See ya.
Yeah, he didn't even stay. He didn't put down roots. And he was just someone that was just on a mission, right?
Yeah.
Every blues player that encountered him said that, you know, he kind of came off kind of like an asshole when he was playing, but when he wasn't playing, he was a nice guy.
Yeah.
And so I honestly feel like there was something weird there. I do, because the urban legend is that he sold his soul. And then he gave his guitar to the devil. Devil tuned it and played him a few songs. Now, I was thinking about this last night. What if those songs that he played were those first 3 songs that I just mentioned? And then he knew how to play those songs. And those were the only songs he knew how to play.
Could be. Yeah.
And he couldn't play anything else.
He practiced them so much, or...
No, just that, like, you ever seen, what was it? Futurama? You watch Futurama?
Yeah.
You know the episode, The Idle Hands play? Where Fry is...
I haven't seen that one.
So Fry sells us... It's basically the same thing. Fry sells his soul to the devil to play a complicated instrument. But his fingers are stubby, so he can't play it. So he needs to have slimmer fingers. So he plays the fingers, and at the same time, it's like he can only play that one note. He can't play anything else.
Oh, okay. I see what you mean.
So I was thinking about, did he play him Sweet Home Chicago? Did he play him Crossroads? Did he play him Terraplane Blues? And then when he gave him back, he automatically knew how to play those songs?
What I want to know is why that one particular place, those crossroads, and did that song have anything to do with it?
No, I looked into it. I actually broke down Crossroads. There's nothing indicating fouls or satanic rituals or selling his soul. But it does say, but people that broke down these lyrics often say that, like, because the first verse starts off, "Oh God, please help me." They're thinking, oh, like, he sold his soul, so he's asking for forgiveness.
Oh, to God.
And so he's like, they're saying Crossroad might be his way to say for asking for forgiveness.
Right.
For selling his soul and for giving into temptation. And to think, oh man, like, I did this and now I'm a prisoner of what
Isn't there a legend of a crossroads holding a certain significance, like the two worlds cross over, something like that, like some kind of spiritual sense?
Is that where that
that's
takes
what
place?
I'm curious about. That's just where my brain is going. Like why
that place?
Why a crossroads?
Yeah.
I honestly don't know. I looked into it and there's no mention of it. They were just saying that it just happened to be a crossroads. Other people said that it was at a graveyard where you made the pact. But the crossroads to me seems more realistic, I feel, and just there's something about it that I can easily just buy into.
I know in certain religions they have like Hecate, where you're supposed to meet her at a crossroads. If you're doing like a ritual, you meet her at the crossroads because she's got the three things. So it's like you're looking, you put like your offerings in those different directions. So a lot of, and that's just one example, but I know a lot of like religions have that. Like that's a very ritualistic kind of place. But I wonder why that particular location.
Well, then also they were talking about African folklore, Legba, who is a trickster, and you would have to meet him at the crossroads in order to make a certain kind of sacrifice. But they also say that Robert Johnson had no, connection to that.
Oh, okay.
And nor did he believe in that kind of stuff. So there's a lot of theories going around about like what's the significance of the crossroads is.
Yeah.
And I can't really narrow it down.
Because what comes to my mind is that maybe somebody that was jealous of him because imagine being
started the rumor
like all of a sudden he was really good and had
he sold
hits.
his soul.
And so I mean, imagine, especially even back then.
And that was like a saying, right? Wasn't that a
just
saying back then? Like, oh, you're going to sell your soul to get that, or that was a popular saying.
So it seems like somebody maybe. I bet he sold the soul.
Yeah.
Well, according to Wikipedia, Wikipedia, a lot of witnesses, even certain people that were around Johnson, started that rumor too. They were saying, they actually perpetuated that myth and played it up. And they were like, he sold his soul. He must have done something dirty because there was no way in hell that, he was that good.
They just sound jealous because what if he did practice like those years, and some people do and they get better. It's happened all the time and they just like
and envious. Even Ike Zimmerman, even his grandkids can confirm that Robert Johnson stayed with Ike Zimmerman.
Yeah.
For 2 years learning. Robert Johnson stayed there for so long that Zimmerman's kids thought that he was Robert Johnson was their cousin.
See, I think that's what really happened then.
I think so. I think so too. I just love that urban legend though, because if you really think about it, like his actions, the way he acted in certain situations, he was always on the move, always on to the next show. He never stopped to slow down. And then once he had the funny thing is that once he had a regional hit. Tragedy struck. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
He didn't get to stick around and see his influence on blues. He didn't get to see what kind of impact that he had on music in general.
And it sounds like he didn't really get to enjoy it either.
No, he didn't get to enjoy it because I feel like he was a prisoner to his passion.
Yeah.
He didn't. I don't feel like every time I'm reading about it, like it didn't. he didn't seem like the person that was enjoying it at that time.
Yeah, which is unfortunate because that's why people want to become artists in the first place, because they enjoy it.
Yeah, and even his death is like really weird.
So what happened?
So now, Robert Johnson allegedly was poisoned. Now, Robert Johnson was fooling around with a married woman. And her husband found out. And her husband, he was a bartender. And Robert Johnson was playing at a bar. Bartender hands him a bottle of Jack's. Here you go, man. This is for you. Enjoy. Bottle was already open. One of his friends, I think it was Willie Williamson, smacks the bottle out of his hand and says, "Don't be drinking out of something that is not sealed."
Yeah.
Robert Johnson said, this is a direct quote from Williamson, "Don't ever smack a bottle on my hand again."
Oh, shit.
And he goes back to the bar. Bartender hands him another one, but it's still laced with poison. He drinks it. He drinks the whole bottle, and he suffers for 3 days. And he finally killed on the third day. Now, people say that it was strychnine, but a lot of autopsy reports, what's the MEs, say that if you drink strychnine on like in higher concentrations, you would die instantly. There's no suffering for 3 days.
Yeah, you'd be like
even if you mask it with liquor, there's still a smell and a taste.
Yeah.
So you can taste it. So
was he an alcoholic?
Yeah, he drank. He
so
loved
maybe
to drink.
he just wanted to just down it, you know? He didn't even notice it.
Yeah, but people say that strychnine, like ingesting it in like a higher doses, there's no way in hell that you could survive for 3 days. A lot of MEs have said that there's no way that you could do that.
Yeah.
There's no way. Unless it was cyanide, because I know cyanide.
High enough dose.
Cyanide, you can.
I was thinking maybe cyanide because that's really big in rat poison.
Yeah. And if you put it in food or liquor, it's like it disguises it so you can't really taste it.
And it takes a while to take effect.
Not that we're giving anybody ideas here.
No. Of course not. Never that. And so, no. And on top of that, when he died on the third day, no one claimed the body.
Oh.
Which is unfortunate.
Did he die like in a hotel or like?
No one knows.
That's weird.
I found places that said he died on a plantation. I found where he died in a motel.
What a mysterious guy.
And no one knows where he's buried.
What?
There are 3 grave sites with his name on it.
No one's like ever dug him up?
No one's dug him up because he is survived by a great grandson. And on his 100-year birthday, which was in 2011, his grandson said he came out and he did a video on YouTube and talked about his great grandfather. But he never mentioned this. But then I was reading on it and they were saying that the most likely thing is, since no one claimed him, he might be in Potter's Field in an unmarked grave. And those 3 grave sites with his name on it are not him.
Why did no one claim him though? Like, was he married? Did he have a wife?
His wife died giving birth in 1929. And he was survived by a kid. He fooled around a lot.
I see.
And his kids were very young. And so no one claimed him.
That's so, like, crazy.
And, like, they don't think they think 2 of them are in Mississippi and the other one is on a plantation.
Why on a plantation? Because
that's where he died. And the owner of the plantation said, like, just put him in there.
Put him in there. Man, it's a very sad life.
And to me, it like, the thing about that, and I've always been fascinated about it, that he was someone that has such impact.
Yeah.
And yet he didn't get to live to enjoy it.
He didn't get to enjoy the fruits.
It wasn't until 1960 or 1961 where Sony Columbia put out a re-releasing of his recordings.
Oh.
And had a and had his music generate a wider release and
So
gained
people
a
knew.
wide audience.
Yeah.
People started getting hip to it. People are starting to listen to him, and that's why people are saying, "Oh, he is very influential." I can hear where Albert King and Stevie Ray Vaughan got their sound from. I can hear why Clapton and Robert Palmer are talking about this guy. I can totally hear it.
Yeah.
And so, like, he didn't get to enjoy the fruits of his labor, and I've always been fascinated by this story.
Yeah.
Whether
Cool.
whether urban legend true or not, this one, Robert Johnson himself is a mysterious person surrounded by mysterious circumstances.
Sounds like it.
And that quote I said by earlier by Martin Scorsese, that is true. You can't find anything really about this guy.
That's I don't know. It's like a sad, very sad story.
And it's funny because 10 years later, or no, 20, maybe 10, 15 years later, you had the musical Damn Yankees,
Oh.
which
yeah.
also deals with the same thing.
Yeah.
Then you start seeing this story kind of generate its own life by seeing it in TV, in movies, in pop culture. The thing is like, especially last year's American Satan,
Oh yeah.
which dealt with
Was
the same
that
thing.
good? I didn't see that.
I didn't see it either. Showtime. It's on Showtime right now.
Yeah.
You can stream it. I didn't see it, but according to reviews, it wasn't good.
So when I was little, I heard the same thing about the guitarist from Led Zeppelin, which the shame I cannot remember the name because
Robert
his
Plant?
name. No, Robert Plant's a
Jimmy.
singer. Yes.
Jimmy Page.
Yes.
Page, okay.
I
Yeah.
heard the same thing about. In fact, I was told that there's witnesses and there's a video of him playing guitar where his fingers are not touching the screen. The
strings.
strings. I don't know why I said screen. Strings, and they're moving. And
What?
and
Wow.
that's supposedly the same thing, or that it's witchcraft, but the same kind
The
of
same thing.
around it. Yeah.
It reminds me of like if you spin certain records or if you put them in reverse, it would be like satanic, sayings or something.
Listen to Stairway to Heaven.
Yeah.
Play it
Ozzy
back.
Osbourne.
Ozzy Osbourne. Yeah.
I remember hearing about that too. Supposedly someone killed themselves after
Yeah.
listening to it.
It's nuts.
So this one really fascinates me, and I really, not to say that I don't enjoy this. Is like this is a really sad, but I do enjoy this story and this legend a lot, especially since he did so much and didn't get to enjoy it. To me, I feel like that's a slap in the face. Like the devil said, "Here, I'll give you the tools to do it, and I'll give you the song to do it with." But when you do make it, you're mine.
And you're gonna die.
Yeah, and so I feel like once he had that hit, that regional hit, I felt his time was up.
Yeah.
That's when he said,
That's
okay,
it.
time to go. You do what you need to do because you have Sweet Home Chicago, Crossroads, Terraplane Blues. Yeah, those 3 songs. Now, those other 2 songs are, marquee remakes. Blues Brothers did Sweet Home Chicago. That's where it's well known. Allman Brothers did Crossroads. And so Terraplane Blues was the song that no one touches because everyone thinks that's the one that's written by the devil.
Oh, so like no one will do a cover of that?
Yeah. I haven't found a cover of that song.
Ah, interesting.
I think that he's not the only blues singer though that does not been able to enjoy the fruits of their labor. In fact,
No.
I think is it Bo Diddley? He doesn't
Bo Diddley.
doesn't own the rights of
Yeah.
of his songs, even though, my God,
But that's just a contract
amazing.
dispute,
That's
though.
like, yeah.
But there's
I'm
but
not. I think it's Bo Diddley.
I think it's like, but to me, it's just fascinating because this was in the 30s. Like, there's no explanation how he got into Columbia and started recording.
And
Like,
things
it's
weren't
all
really-
of a sudden, like,
Yeah.
he's in Columbia recording 6 songs for them. 6
Things weren't
records.
really documented back then either, though.
Yeah, that is true. But I just find that weird, though.
It is weird. It honestly sounds like a Tales from the Crypt episode. Like,
Yeah.
you'll be successful, you'll have all this influence, but you're not going to live long enough to see it. You're going to die.
And, not to be, like,
The monkey's
shameless or
paw,
anything like
sure.
that, but, I was actually writing a story based on this urban legend about a local rapper doing the same thing. But the devil tricks him to thinking that viral success is equivalent to success. So
That's
once
cool.
he goes viral, and, he's done. And I feel like, oh, that's cool. I just like the slap in the face.
Yeah.
Like, you can't enjoy it.
Yeah.
But that's my shameless plug. Sorry, but that's
That's
Robert
your-
Johnson, Crossroads. That to me, that's it. That in itself is a fascinating story, and I encourage people that if like you're a music lover or a blues lover, definitely like check this guy out and like look into his music and look into his background because it's just so fascinating.
And it's cool because this one's not really talked about, so I'm sure this opens a lot of, ears to people and finding this out.
Yeah, so
Finding more out about it.
So that's mine, and that was kind of based on legend, based on circumstance, based on maybe myth.
/ based on /
It's weird because it's so hard to sort out what's true and what's fiction.
I know. Well, mine is nothing like that one. However, it is very timeless, and real events have been inspired by this. So this is The Killer in the Back Seat. So there's really a lot of different versions of this. I'll kind of like break them down as best as I can. But the one I've heard, and the one that's like the most popular one, is a woman driving home alone at night who is followed closely by a stranger in a truck. And, it's a dark road. There's not many people around. So this truck is like driving behind her, and he really tries to pursue her right off the highway and keeps flashing his high beams at her, trying to get her attention. And she's like getting freaked out, like, what is going on? But she still drives. She doesn't want to stop. She keeps driving. And then finally she gets into her driveway, and the trucker is still following her, and he parks behind her, runs out of his car, opens her back car door, and pulls a man out who was hiding in the back seat who had a knife. So apparently whenever he would flash his high beams, that's when he was trying to warn the girl, because that's when the killer was holding up the knife trying to kill her. So every time, that's where the high beams come in. And you also hear different scenarios of this, of a woman driving to a gas station. The gas attendant is pumping her gas for her, and he notices a stranger in the back seat, and he kind of plays it cool. He doesn't want to like freak her out in the situation, so he warns her like, "Oh, ma'am, there's something wrong with your card," or "Oh, ma'am, can you come with me?" And then he takes her, into the
office, right?
The office, yeah, and locks it and says, "Did you know there was a man hiding in the backseat of your car?" And then she's like, "What? No!" So then they call the cops, and another version of this has been passed down of the gangs, where if you're driving on the freeway and someone who is an oncoming car has their high beams or their lights off, don't flash them, because that's a gang annihilation, that they'll drive behind you, come after you. And it's funny because a lot of people have heard this, especially in cities like LA. Like, I asked one of my friends this because she's like, "Yeah, I remember like when we were in LA hearing about this, a woman would do that. She would flash to warn someone, and then she pulled up to a gas station. They followed her, came, and like would attack her, cut a piece of her ear or like a piece of her nipple to prove to their gang that they could do this." And I think, it's a crazy idea, but that one's been tied into the killer in the backseat scenario. But the main one is him being in the back and she having no idea. So I looked this up just because this story frightened me, especially when I got a car. I mean, I would drive around to go visit my friends, and we were night owls. So like I would drive late, and I would always check the back of my car, because this just freaked me out, because anyone can get into your car. Anyone. Or even like the whole being under the car and like slashing your ankles. That one like freaked me out. So I was just very paranoid. But this, especially being a woman driving alone at night in like the country area, just freaked me out. So I looked up into this, like, where did this come from? And then there's all kinds of news clippings I found. Like, apparently one came from Palo Alto, California in 1935. And there's a headline that said, "Man lurking in back seat, slugs girls, hurls victims to ground, steals car and purses." So that was from 1935. And then you had another one in 1964 where an escaped murderer hid in a backseat of a car, but the guy that had the car was a cop. So he shot the guy. So he didn't, thank God that guy was a detective, because if he wasn't, he would have been gone. But then I heard, there's been kind of more recent ones. Indiana, 1990. there was a man hiding in a woman's van who jumped out when he was spotted at a fast food drive-thru. And then most recently, there was one in 2007 where a college girl, I think she had a SUV. I'm not sure if it was an SUV, but it was like a big car. But she was driving home, and then there was a guy hiding with a gun and said, "I want you to take me somewhere." And then she was freaked out, but she jumped out of her car at that point, and then he just like ran away. So that was 2007. So there have been cases of this, but this legend kind of became really popular, I think, in the 80s, because there was another column. It was the Ann Landers column where a reader wrote in telling her to spread the word of the gas station version of this story. So, and that was like, oh, this happened to my friend kind of deal. So this, I mean, there have been instances of this. And then also there's been a lot of car break-ins, especially in college campuses, men lurking around cars, stalking females. So this has happened, and this is a very like a timeless thing, like we were talking about. Like this could happen anywhere.
And the funny thing is that a lot of people have their fucking windows tinted.
I know.
So they can't even look in the back seat until it's too late.
I will never tint my windows because of this.
My windows are tinted, but I leave them like kind of like lower so I can see. Like, okay.
Do you check the back seat of your car?
Yeah, I do.
Every time you get in?
Yeah, I do now because like I work at the hotel, and I deal with a lot of homeless people.
Oh, yeah.
And so I have to kick them out, and sometimes I find them sleeping underneath the car or in front of the car, stuff like that. And, I gotta tell them to move.
Do they yell at you or like get violent?
Sometimes they do, and sometimes
That's
they
scary.
don't. And so one night I left my car open.
Uh-oh. Never leave your doors unlocked.
No, this is me like being overly confident. It's like, nothing's gonna happen.
Yeah.
Right? So I go and I open my car and I see something moving. It's like, what the fuck is that? And then luckily it was just a little fucking cat.
Oh. Well, that's a good one. That's not a scary one.
Get the fuck out of here.
Yeah.
I was like, okay, how'd that get in? Like, I'm just thinking, like, how'd you get in? Did I leave the door open? Because I usually leave the door open when I'm changing.
Oh, so you probably dashed in or something.
Probably dashed in, and he was, like, hanging underneath my clothes and shit.
Aww.
I'm like, you fucker. Scared the shit out of me.
All I heard had a knife on him.
Like, his claw is going to claw the shit out of me.
Oh.
So, like, to me, like, I check the back seat. Even when I first got my car,
yeah,
I always check the back seat because this is one that could happen. And especially if you have an older car, it's a lot easier to break into an older car than it is a newer car.
Yeah.
Or so I'm told.
Yeah. Well, not that you have experience, right?
No, not that I have experience. I'm just saying that, according to, like, Honda, like, the newer cars are, like, unbreakable. But no, nothing's unbreakable.
But yeah, like, I don't know, like, this story just scares me for some reason. Just because, like, it's so possible.
Again, it's the real factor.
Yeah.
It's based on it. And it's like, it's so real that it could happen to you. Especially when someone tells you that it happened to them.
Or someone that they knew. Yeah.
And and again, like when I was doing my research, they said these legends have effect because people personalize them.
Yeah.
And so it makes you think twice.
And this could happen to anyone. This doesn't just happen to women. It could happen to men too. Like you're not, what's the word? You're not safe, right? No, nobody's safe.
Yeah.
In this, so like always lock your doors. Just be cautious of your surroundings too. All of these urban legends have that kind of be aware of your surroundings. Know what's going on. Mm-hmm. Especially in the world we live in today. There's just a lot of crime. Doesn't matter where you live. It could happen anywhere. Even grocery stores, people are like reporting like, yeah, someone's been trying to like break into cars there or like hide and like get your money from your wallet and run away. So like it doesn't matter. You could be at a gas station, a grocery store, you could be in the city. It doesn't matter. It could be anywhere. But yeah, I don't know, like that one freaks me out.
Yeah, that was kind of tough.
And Urban Legends did a good one on that because they combined both the gas station and like the killer and
Yeah, and they really did a great job of making the gas station clerk a creep.
Brad Dourif,
right?
Yeah,
fucking Chucky, man, can't go wrong with that.
In the back seat, the way he says it, because he stutters, right? But that's like the only thing he can say.
Not to to backtrack, but the story, I remember hearing a story, the Stranger in the House one, and it makes me wonder if the urban legend came from this a long time ago, and this was an actual true story. A family kept hearing noises in the attic.
Yes, I just found out about this story.
And
it was a homeless woman, right?
No, it was so they didn't check, like it was real random too, where it didn't sound like anything extreme where they would need to check. It was like house sounds, I guess, or something. They didn't think
creepy
anything
house
of
sounds,
it, and they all got murdered. It was somebody living in their attic, and they didn't know that he was there.
Oh, it was a guy?
Yeah.
Because I recently researched this, and there was
But it's it happened a long time ago, like in the 40s or something.
Oh,
in
wow.
an old farmhouse. But they found the kids were murdered, everybody was murdered.
Wow. Yeah, because I read there's another story where there's like a homeless woman living for over a year in these people's attic, and food would go missing. That's scary too when shit goes missing.
That's what they said, that there was things.
Yeah,
like
things misplaced, food missing, and weird sounds, and they didn't know for a year. No one died, but that shit's scary. Like especially like if you're alone in the house. I don't know. Yeah. Always be aware. If there's anything weird, check it out, but carry mace or a gun or a knife, and just be aware.
Even in your own living room.
Even in your own freaking living room. But
man, now I don't even want to go back to the house.
I know, no one's safe, right? You're all doomed.
It's like, man, I gotta go back to the country right now in that big ass house. No, I'm good, man.
You know, it also begs, like, the question comes up is, have things, and I think about this all the time, have things really changed? I mean, it seems like things always, I think we just can find out things more. We get more information.
Yeah, we have more access.
Things have always happened.
Yeah, and they still will.
Exactly.
They still
There's
will.
always been
you know, now
serial killers and rapists and shootings and things. I think we just
but the thing is now too is like some of these urban legends are taking their own kind of life form now with the creation of creepypasta.
Yeah, creepypasta really put things on the map. They did Slender Man, right?
They did Slender Man, Candle Cove.
The dog one. Did you read the dog one?
Smiling Dog.
Yeah. Which I haven't looked at.
I need to send that to 10 people right away.
But then the whole chain letter thing.
Chain letter.
When technology happened, you got all sorts of new urban legends going on. The chain letter was like the first one.
And so that's the thing now. Now urban legends have taken their own little life form, and they transformed into social media. Mm-hmm. And now it's everywhere. Yeah. You know, you can go down the rabbit hole on several creepypastas and you still cannot find the original Arthur, or if it's even based on anything, or if it's just an imagination of some Reddit user. Right. And I think that's what creepypasta is so good at, that they're vague enough to be real, but at the same time fantastical enough to scare the shit out of you.
Yeah. And they're more recent ones too.
Yeah, and creepypasta was taken off in 2010. Yeah. No one really knows when it happened, but they popped up, and then now they just blew up.
Mm-hmm. Skyrocketed.
And then Slender Man was the one that kind of put it over the top.
Yeah.
Candle Cove was another one. Yeah. That was one that I was actually gonna do.
I was
gonna do Candy Cove, but the more I dug into it, the more I realized, like, oh, these Reddit users are all the same person.
I know.
So I'm like, but then again, you know, the realism, it's vague enough for you to understand that this could happen.
It could happen, and I feel like they're so detailed. Mm-hmm. But yeah, like you can like go on there and just like look at them. I mean, they're scary, and it's funny because sometimes I'll see comments. Even on like sometimes YouTube will do like true scary stories, and people are like, why do I look at this, or why do I read this at nighttime? So like people always read it at nighttime, but it is scary. But I'm so happy that those stupid chain letter things have ended. Do you remember like when they really took off, and then like I feel like they kind of died off the last couple of years. Like I'm not getting them anymore, thank God. But at first to be like, oh shit, I gotta send this out.
I see them in threads online though.
Oh, you'll see them in threads?
Put it in thread. Like,
I'll see them on Messenger and stuff like that.
No, not in Messenger, like on a thread.
Oh,
There'll
really?
Be a random quote where they'll say, your whole family will die if you don't repost this.
So they're still out there.
Or this link, repost this link 10 times. Yeah.
Wow. That's crazy. But we have our own
urban legends.
Urban legend. So the great thing is, no matter where you're from, I guarantee you there's a
have your
local
own.
urban legend. And that's what's so fascinating. And so many are so similar too. Every state has like a similar urban legend. But why don't we let you go?
Okay,
Since I
so
went last.
this one is an urban legend based on a true story, in air quotes. And I can't find an article about this anywhere. It's like, I don't know, it's like scrubbed from public record or something. And it's weird because everyone in my own hometown knew about this. And if you grew up in the 80s and in the 90s, you know about the story, especially if you're from Watsonville,
California.
and it is the Flamingo Club. It is the dance with the devil. So I'm gonna tell the version that I was told when I was a kid, and let's see if I can remember it. So back in the day, there was a nightclub in Watsonville called the Flamingo Club. It looked like a warehouse. It was very bright and colorful. You know, disco ball, DJ had its own stage, bar on the side. There's this woman at the bar dressed in red, and she's ordering drinks. An attractive man comes up to her, so they start talking, and the man has a Band-Aid on his forehead. She makes a comment, says, just, I nicked myself cutting my hair or something like that. And by this time, they're already drinking. He offers to buy her a drink. She accepts. And then a certain song comes on. He puts out his hands, come on, let's go dance. She takes it. They go to the dance floor, and then they start dancing. And then once that song ends, then it goes into a slower song. They start slow dancing, and then the lights turn off. And there's a scream. A fucking blood-curdling scream. That just like, holy shit. And it's pitch black. But it's pitch black that you could feel movement just stop in its tracks, right?
Dead still.
And there's this orange red glow creeping up from the middle of the dance floor. And then you start seeing people's faces, and then they start realizing what it is, and it's a fire. And then the lights come on, the fire's done, and then she's burnt.
The woman's burnt?
The woman's burnt to a crisp. Now, there are several different variations to this story. Now, there's one where the couple dance, and they start hovering over the crowd. Mm-hmm. There's another one where the woman is had her throat slit. But all of them, the one thing they do all have in common is the man, the Band-Aid, and the lights going off at a certain time.
So is the man like the devil?
That's what everyone says. Everyone says that he had the 666 right here on his head, and that's what the Band-Aid was covering up.
Huh.
But I think that came from something else. But that was something that was added when I was told as a kid by my cousins and stuff like that. They were telling me this story, and I was like, what the fuck? Like, that can't be true.
Yeah. And
they're telling me this shit before I gotta go to bed. I was like, why would you tell me this?
Yeah.
Like, are you trying to scare me? Like, what the fuck? I just saw Nightmare on Elm Street, and now you're gonna try to scare me with this shit. That's not cool.
How old were you when you first heard this?
It was 90, 91, 89, about like 4 or 5 years old.
Oh, so super young.
Yeah, but my parents used to frequent that club a lot. My mom, my stepdad, they would go to that club Friday, Saturday night. So Friday, Saturday night, I would be at my nana's house, and that's where I heard the story. But all of a sudden, after that happened, after I was told that story, my mom and stepdad stopped going to that club.
Oh, wow.
So, like, something had happened there, but no one knows exactly what happened there.
See, and I heard it around the same time, too, in the 90s. Even though we didn't know each other, I heard it in the 90s, too. And I heard that she burned up.
That's crazy.
Caught fire and burned up.
Did the club, like, shut down?
Yeah, it got shut down maybe about a few months after that, because a couple more things happened.
Like weird things?
Yeah, and they were saying, oh, maybe the place is haunted. Maybe something's wrong with it. They demolished the building.
Wow.
And what's up there is a fruit market and a car place, like car parts.
Okay.
And then you got a taqueria right next door that's right next door to a park, which the park in itself has its own little weird things at night.
Do they know what was there before the club?
No. Well, maybe they do, but I just haven't looked into it.
I wonder if they're like with something else or if it's like on a burial ground.
Because I do know that whole thing from where Flamingo Club is in Ramsey Park and where the Target is now, all that was like fields.
Yeah, could have been like a burial ground or
I don't know if it was a burial
reservation
ground,
or something.
or maybe
someone died. Maybe there used to be a crossroads.
Yeah, there could have been a crossroads or like a graveyard.
The only thing I do know that, and this is speculation, that Lakeview Middle School was built on a burial ground.
Oh, I heard that. I've heard about that.
So now I don't know how much weight I should give that rumor, but I've talked to people at Lakeview and they all say, oh, there's something definitely weird about that place.
Yeah.
Like there's a weird presence there. Nothing malevolent, but something that's just there.
Feels off.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So.
Well, the graveyard isn't it right across the street?
Yeah, the graveyard's across the street, but I'm talking about the actual Lakeview.
No, I know, but I mean there is a graveyard across the street.
They always say like never build anything by a graveyard or a church because it's not just that it'll carry out.
Portable.
Yeah. Huh.
Yeah, so that's the dance
Freaky.
with the devil, and I can't find anything about it, and it's just like.
Wait, what year did that happen again? 80s, you said?
Early 90s.
I want to say like 80,
early 90s.
89, 90.
Do you know any like relatives that have gone around that time?
Yeah,
or
but
anyone you could ask?
I don't have access to them right now. They live in Vegas, so I would have to ask my cousin Louise and see.
Yeah, just because it's always interesting to get it from the people that have been there.
I would ask my mom, but my mom would she'd say no.
She doesn't want to talk about it.
Yeah, she doesn't want to talk about it. So
really?
Yeah, so it's like. I don't know if if it's too close to home for her or if she was there or what, but something had happened that made my stepdad and my mom stop going.
I wonder if the club owner is still alive. If there's a way to track him down and ask.
Maybe. But that's one of the stories. That's one of our urban legends out there in Watsonville, California.
Creepy.
And I think that's one that's that doesn't even serve as a cautionary tale, honestly, or a morality tale. It just serves to scare the shit out of you. And just well, I guess there is a cautionary tale to it. Like, just be careful who you dance with, I guess.
Don't dance with the devil.
Oh, man, we got a package coming in?
Got a package coming in.
Oh, man, here we go.
Maybe he won't ring the doorbell.
He's going to ring the doorbell. Ding,
you think so?
He's going to bang on the door.
There we go.
Told you.
That's the devil at the door.
All right. We're going to take a quick break.
Quick break. It's my turn to go, right?
Yeah, it's your turn now.
Okay. All right, and we are back.
All right, there we go.
So we last left you with Johnny's local Watsonville urban legend. So I've lived in so many parts. I moved around a lot growing up, all over California, but I'll do the ones where I stayed a little longer in the area. So as a kid, I lived in Milpitas for a while. And there's a lot of urban legends or, weird things happening in Milpitas. But one that really stuck out for me was Marsh Road. I don't know if you've heard about this one in Milpitas. Apparently, Marsh Road, a lot of bicyclists go up there. It's you have to drive by Calveras, and I think Hicks Road is also near there. It's kind of out in the middle of nowhere. There's a lot of hills, but this one apparently there's a ghost of a girl, and she crouches down at night in the middle of the street, and anyone that tries to go comfort her, she begins screaming and crying, and then she's gone and disappears. Other people say there's crazy albino cults up there, and I don't know what an albino cult is. I know what a cult is, but albino people
they have their own cult.
Apparently there's they're called hick albinos. They're dangerous and they'll drive in these trucks. A lot of people report white trucks and then they'll run you off the road. or there's like a cult where they do like satanic stuff. But like albino people, I don't know why like people are scared of them, because like they just have a, it's just their skin and their hair and their eyes.
Just powder.
Right? Oh, I love Powder. That's such a good movie.
Yeah.
But so it was always told, oh, don't go up there at night, especially like don't go up there, like these crazy albino hicks will like run you off the road, like they're really dangerous, don't go over there. And then the haunted girl on the road. So I looked this up and I found this out a while back. True story. Back in the I want to say late 70s or early 80s, a guy took his girlfriend up there, and I don't know if they were girlfriend boyfriend, if he had more of a crush on her or whatever. He took her up to Marsh Road and he raped her and killed her and left her body there. If this sounds familiar, you know where I'm going. He didn't tell anyone about it. He left her there. He went back to high school, bragged about what he did and her body, lured a bunch of the high school kids to go see the body, and they all looked. No one reported it at the time. Took like a couple days or like a week or a little bit longer. If this sounds familiar to you, it's because there's a movie called The River's Edge with Keanu Reeves. I was
going to say, I think I saw a movie all about that.
Yeah, so Keanu Reeves, Crispin Glover, Dennis, what's his name? Oh my God.
Hopper?
Yes, Dennis Hopper. Great movie, by the way. They shot it, I think, in Portland or Oregon, somewhere over there. Great movie. So that's what's based off of this story. So they think the haunted ghost girl is the girl that was raped. I don't know where these like crazy albino cult people come in, but I will say, so like I went on this like urban legend kick to like go to different like haunted destinations. I went here about like 2 to 3 years ago, and they closed a lot of it off, but there is one way you can get in. So me and my friend that were there, we like drove in, and as soon as we entered, I'm not even kidding, I'm not making this up, there was a truck that came after us. And I'm like, oh shit, are these like those crazy hicks? Like, I'm like, get us out of here, get us out of here. So like and they came like really fast. So I was like, we gotta back up. So we left. So I didn't get to go see where her, like the area of like her body, where that was. But it is kind of creepy out there, especially at nighttime. There's no lights. Like it's very similar to 152. So I don't know, like that, it was just kind of creepy to hear that and knowing that someone was actually like murdered up there.
What kind of truck was it?
The truck that came after us was an older truck. I don't know if it was like a Chevy or I don't remember, but it was white. It was a white truck. And they came like speed, like I'm not even, this sounds like I'm making it up, but I'm not, I kid you not. So I don't know if it's people that are pissed off that live up there that don't want people coming. Maybe that's where like the crazy hicks and the trucks come from. Mm. So, but it is like, yeah, it is creepy out there for sure.
Because isn't the Hills Have Eyes movie based on a real?
Oh, the original one.
Family.
Yeah, about cannibals.
Cannibal family. That, lived up in the hills, and when
I don't know where that one
sneak down and
like crazy, all like.
And would get people to eat. Basically.
That one, I'm not sure where that originated from, but yeah, I've heard that too.
Yeah, I saw a documentary. It was an actual. Family.
Do you know what state?
I do. For some reason, I want to say. It
was like
I want to say New Mexico. I don't know.
New Mexico?
But maybe I'm wrong.
Huh.
I think I'm mixing my stories up, but it was a real family that.
Wow.
Stayed in the hills, and they would lure people in. And
I'm just like wondering like where the albinos come from, because I've even heard on the 152 there's an albino community, and I've never seen them. There's a lot of albino like mysticism in California, and I don't know why, but I heard it in high school, like, yeah, there's like a weird albino community, but like they only come out at night, and I'm like, what the? Like, so I've heard that a lot in different areas. I don't know. It's weird. You got another one?
I was really thinking about that one, and it kind of brought me back to when I was taking a college course in criminal behavior, and they actually talked about that case.
Oh, they did?
Yeah, about the one you were talking about.
Yeah.
And the one thing that I took away from it is how he went back to school and showed everyone the dead body.
It's messed up.
And how none of the kids went and told the parents or the cops, and the instructor was telling us, that's the basic mob mentality, is like, all these kids they're in on it now. It's like they don't know if they can tell someone. So the one thing I took away from that is like, shit, like now, like they wanted to help, but they didn't know how to.
They didn't know how. Maybe they were scared too that the guy was gonna do something to them.
Yeah, but they each came back on their own individually though. And like in the real story, the kid, he didn't bring him back. The kids came.
They would go. Yeah.
They would go themselves.
Yeah.
And they would go back, tell their friends, and their friends would go, and then their friends would go, and it wasn't until like the cops noticed like all this traffic at this one area.
Like why are these kids going up there?
And then they found the bodies. Like you kids are coming up here looking at the body, and you didn't tell us. Like, come on, like we could have did something, you know.
It then became like a party spot after that. Like a lot of high school kids would go up there and like drink beer and stuff and smoke pot.
Oh wow.
Yeah. And I think some to this day even try to like go do it, but that truck comes and like chases you out of there.
I wonder if it's private property. And
I think it is now, because I remember the last time I went there was a sign that said it, but there was a street like right near it. Mm-hmm. But we didn't even, like I said, we couldn't even get down far into it because that truck came out. So I don't know. It could be that they just don't want anyone back there and they're annoyed. I understand that, but everything because of what I've heard, like, oh, they'll like hurt you and like do weird satanic shit to you. I'm like, I ain't gonna mess with this, so I don't want to be that victim. But yeah, it's a sad story though, like what happened to her.
Yeah, it is. And I think my final urban legend is 152. I was gonna go with the Vanishing Hitchhiker, but that one is. Actually, this one too. Actually, this one is actually varies across the states. Actually, too, and it's the Lady in White. But the one on 152, it's supposedly said that it is the daughter of the Mount Madonna Inn. So the father that owned the Mount Madonna Inn, he was teaching his daughter how to ride a horse, and the horse flew back and he killed her.
Yeah, she fell off.
And the father shut down everything after that. I was like, I don't want to deal with this anymore. And so the Lady in White is supposedly supposed to be the daughter walking, looking for a ride or looking for the horse. And if you actually go up into Mount Madonna at night, you can actually hear the horse.
Really?
Yeah.
People say that?
You can actually hear the horse like walking around.
What? I've never heard it.
And then if you go down on 152, you see her walking by Mount Madonna Inn. Don't pick her up, because if you pick her up, you know the story is that you either go off the cliff.
Wow.
Or by the time you get down Mount Madonna, she's gone.
Yeah.
But she'll never enter the passenger seat. She will always enter in the back seat.
Oh, interesting. Because you'll hear a lot of the Vanishing Hitchhiker. Well, she'll get in the front seat, and then the guy will look, and then she's gone.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So like it's like the Lady in White, she will always enter the back seat.
Because I think that was popular for carriages, right?
Yeah.
Yeah.
And so then supposedly, if you look in your rear view and you look at her, that's when you go off the cliff. But if you happen to not look at her and just go, and you turn around, by the time you get down to the mountain, you she's gone.
She's gone.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But that one is actually like known all over, like in rural areas like Pennsylvania,
every state,
and North Virginia and stuff like that, or North Dakota, like places that have like fields and stuff like that. That legend is very prevalent.
Yeah.
So I don't know how that legend got started here, if it just kind of like migrated down over to California, or whatnot. But that's the last one. I know, kind of a whimper to go out on it, but yeah.
Well, it is creepy, especially if you drive there at night. You get like your Lover's Lane and your Vanishing Hitchhiker in one.
Yeah.
Bada boom. But yeah, that's a popular one. I've heard that one a lot too. Okay, so another place I lived growing up was Pebble Beach, California, Monterey County area. This was told to us as kids because like we were really adventurous, and I lived really close to the beach, and close to this area called 17 Mile Drive. A lot of motorists do this, a lot of tourists, even to this day, like it's so crowded, want to drive 17 Mile Drive because it's really pretty. You get to look at the ocean, and then you get to look at the cypress trees. So it is a beautiful spot. But there's this one area called Ghost Tree, and they call it that just because the trees There's like mixed things, but people say, oh, the trees look really creepy because there's a lot of wind in that one area. So the trees look like they're like kind of witchy and like ghosty. And it's also called like Pescadero Point. So this was told to us that a woman in white haunts that area.
There's the woman in white.
Another lady, yeah, so they call her the lady in lace. So she's the lady in lace. And she roams around, and surfers say they've seen her, motorists say they've seen her, and they think she's about to jump off the rocks and commit suicide. So when they go and they try to stop her, she's gone. She's vanished. So I looked this up just because like this scared me so much as a kid, just because I would walk around there all the time, and that area is extremely foggy. Mm-hmm. Very foggy a lot of the times of the year, actually, and it's very dark, and there's no lights in Pebble Beach. Like there's no street lights at all. So it just scared us because like every time the fog would roll in and like you were around that area, it's like, oh, you know, Lady in Lace, she's coming for you, she's gonna get you, she's gonna get you. So she was kind of like the boogeyman of that area. But I looked this up, and apparently she there's a history to her. Her name was Donna Maria. She had a really long name, Donna Maria del Carmen Barreto, and she actually owned like over 4,000 acres of that area. And they said she got kind of bored at the time, and then she decided to like sell her real estate to this one guy, forgot his name. And then he got it for such a good deal, and she regretted it for how low she sold it. So it was kind of like she would put like not a curse, but like kind of like a revenge kind of thing. Like she wanted it back or something. So she would haunt that area. Other people thought, oh, she was a jilted bride, and she was like looking for her husband who stood her up. So there was all like kind of mixed tales on it, but apparently like Donna Maria was the one that owned that area, and people think it's her ghost. But another thing I heard growing up, and it's funny because like I actually talked to my mom about this the other day. I was like, hey mom, do you remember when we were younger, we were driving at night, and it's creepy at night when you're driving there because it's just the woods. Yeah. Like it's just trees. Like I said, no lights. Very dark, dark, dark. The only thing you have is lights or your headlights, or like if it's a full moon. I was like, Mom, do you remember when I was younger and you told me and my sister there was a deformed lady living in the woods and who would wear white and who would wear like kind of like a white scarf over her head, and she would walk and like roam like she was looking for something, but that she's deformed and like really creepy. She's like, yeah, I remember telling you. Then she starts cracking up. I'm like, why did you tell us that? And my sister's like, yeah, that still scares me to this day. She's like, I don't know, like people, because my mom used to own a Victorian tea business in Pacific Grove. A lot of people would come in and like tell her things. So she's like, I think I heard it from like one of those women. And I was like, man, like that still scares me to this day. So I don't know if like that's tied into the Lady in Lace. I can't find anything on this deformed woman. I've looked and looked. I don't know if my mom like had too much whiskey that night and was just like messing around.
Maybe she kind of confused the two legends and just made up that one.
Yeah. But there was one night where a woman with dementia knocked on our door late at night, and she couldn't find her house, and she was like kind of scary, and my dad had to like tell her where to go. So I don't know like if that kind of added to the deformed woman.
Was that before or after she told you?
After.
Oh, it was after?
Yeah. I don't know.
Oh wow.
Maybe that came from like a woman having to, because there are people that have, because a lot of the people that live there are older, and a lot of them do have dementia. So maybe that came from like, oh, they're just out at night because they don't know where they live and they're lost, you know, and it's super dark, so they don't know where they're going.
You know, with a deformed woman, and that I think that's like a witch's tale, though.
Is it?
I think it's a witch tale, or something else. Because I do remember hearing that if you asked a woman to take off her
like the shawl thing.
Yeah. And she kills you, and if you don't ask her to take her off, she lets you pass it or something like that. But either way, it's like it's kind of like a morality tale for men. It's just saying like, don't base everything on don't judge a book by its cover.
Oh, okay.
And so like if you make the wrong move, you could possibly go off a cliff or. Mm-hmm. Or you can be like in the woods dead or something like that.
Yeah, it just freaked me out because the room I had, I had a door that connected to the backyard, and it would just creep me out because I had like, it was like the Scream house where it's very large windows, like glass windows everywhere, and just like all white. So like at night, pitch black outside, you couldn't see anything. So ever since like I heard that, I was just like freaked out because I'm like, she's gonna get in the backyard and she's gonna like get in my room and like get me. But that was scary, and like I don't know if that's still going on with like today's kids, which I hope it is. That's the thing. I want local urban legends to go on. Like I really want them to live and like to be passed down to generations. You know, what do you think about that?
It's really based on the community, and I feel like local urban legends, especially like if you're coming from like a small town or small community, I think local urban legends have more weight to them.
Yeah.
You know, like if you're coming from like San Jose or San Francisco, LA, like big cities like that, you know, I like those legends are not gonna hit you very hard.
Yeah.
You know, like the mental hospital, the abandoned hospital in LA is gonna hit you a little bit harder than say, a woman in white walking down a mountain. Yeah. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
So I feel
those are like landmarks, right?
Yeah.
There's so many landmark urban legends already in cities where it's like.
Yeah, but they're not really like local though. They're
right.
like nationally known.
Yeah.
You know, I feel like local urban legends, they're made for us. They're made for our community in a sense where we pass them down to like our kids, and they pass them down to their kids, and then that generation can keep those legends alive and possibly have their own spin to it.
Yeah, they'll add something new to it. You know, make it more.
I'm pretty sure Gilroy has its own urban legend.
Oh yeah, there's
Hollister. You know, Watsonville. We each have our own urban legend and our own little what's the word? Story for each of them. Yeah, I don't know why I brain farted there. But yeah, I feel like, you know, smaller communities have a better chance of keeping local legends alive rather
than the city folks.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah, for sure. And I also think as long as there's horror books, horror movies, we'll have urban legends, you know, because I feel like a lot of them are tied together. And like you said, as long as the now adults like our age are passing them down, I think it'll create that cycle that will live on. So here's hoping.
Yeah, we gotta keep those legends alive, you know.
Yeah, because it's fun too. It's like a fun, like it makes the town interesting, you know.
Yeah, and it makes it more tourist attraction.
Yeah, for sure. Tourist trap.
All we need is a hick with fucking telekinesis.
Oh, Chuck Connors. I wish he would come back to life. Oh.
Chuck Connors. That guy's awesome.
Love him.
All right. Well, that was our episode on urban legends. You know what they say, legends never die.
Yep.
And these stories will never die as long as we keep passing them on. So, you know.
Pass them on.
Keep scaring the younger generation. And it might be harder now with social media. So, if you want to scare that generation, just scare them. I had a good pun for this. God damn it. I hate this. Anyway, Assassination Nation, that's how you're going to scare them. That movie, that's how you scare them. Just reveal everything on social media and that'll scare them.
Yeah, right.
All right. So, I'm Johnny Zuko, my co-host Elysa, and we are out. What?
Oh, yeah, we forgot to introduce her.
Nah, she's not here. Fuck that.
It's a ghost. She's actually an urban legend.
She's our subconscious talking. That just doesn't know when to shut up.
All right. Stay scary, everybody.
Peace.
Stay scary.